Hello, this is going to be a video on a project that has been lasting for quite some time and I want to terminate it. It's going to be on my Starway X200 from 1994. The frame is made from true temper double butted tubing. It's also made in France, which makes it somewhat rare during the 90s when many French manufacturers either closed down, were rebought, or moved their manufacturing facilities abroad. A quick lesson on Starway. The company is based on Loire, and it was created in 1985, making BMX bikes. They moved shortly onto mountain biking, and the company then went into liquidation in 1999. It looks like someone that used to have a stake in the company has reopened up the company with the same name under Starway, and now they sell electric bikes. Their one shot to stardom was probably their X300 frame, which they claim to be the lightest steel frame in the world. I think it was 8.45 kilos. Unfortunately, I think during a test it failed, the stem or the fork broke. Initially when I bought the bike, it was in a very poor state. Since then I've been upgrading the parts, notably the Suntour XC Pro thumb shifters, which was the newest acquisition. I also serviced the Rockshox Judy XC forks. There's a video on my channel of me doing that. So now the aim is to try and make it as much as possible French bike using French components to a certain degree. And I also want to replace the cabling and doing some greasing and cleaning generally. Amongst the acceptable French parts to put on this bike are these CLB Neptune 3s. I had a very hard time sourcing them and I've not been able to find a second pair, so these will go at the front. For French made derailleurs, I have the choice between a Mavic, I think it's 841 mid-cage derailleur, or this Mars 900, which is actually a Sachs quartz in disguise. I kind of prefer the Sachs quartz. I like that silver polished finish, so we're going to probably use this one. Next up are these CLB Neptune 3 brake levers that were supposed to match up with the Neptune front brakes. The only thing is, I don't think these are made in France. I think these are just Diacomp brake levers that have been repainted and rebadged. And I already have some Acor brake levers that are a little bit more blingy, so I think I'm going to use the Acor ones instead. This is by the French manufacturer Starbar. It's a riser bar and the model's XC2. It's made in France. I'm pretty sure that they made bars for Sun at one point. So I'm hoping that this will allow me to have a stem with less angle but still give me the same rise. I know it's weird to be removing this XTI M900 rear derailleur. As lovely as it is, I do believe that the Sachs quartz derailleur is just as good. So since the aim is to make it French made, we're going to replace it. And same for the front brakes too. These are the brake levers that I was talking about previously. They are CNC made. Acor, I think, was another company that Tetra invented to sell their higher ended stuff. I'm going to replace the bottom bracket with a newer sealed one, same spindle length 122, which is the recommended length for XT M730 cranksets. The only issue I have is with the overlayers chain rings. I find they don't work very well with the derailleur that I've got now, which is not quite the same shape as the previous XT front derailleurs that existed. So we'll see how that works out, but I think I might have to end up changing this crankset with another one, or get some new chain rings. It turns out that the bar diameter is slightly too big, and I'm unable to put the new grips on, so I'm going to have to work on that. I ended up getting some derailleur and brake cable housing ferrules that are red coloured. They go a little bit with the top caps adjuster knobs on the Rockshox, and also they somehow match a little bit with the salmon coloured brake levers. After testing, it seems, and regrettably, that the crankset is just not going to work out. At least the ovalized chain rings are not going to work out of the front derailleur. The shifting's just not precise enough for me. So I'm going to be replacing the crankset with another one, which means I'm going to need another bump bracket. Unfortunately, I can't use the ones I already have because the threading is not deep enough in the bump bracket of this bike, which means I have to get another BB UN55. Eventually, I sourced a UN55 in 113 length. I would have preferred a UN72 or 73, which I already have, but the threading is too long, and on the Starway, the bottom brackets, the threading doesn't go deep enough. So I've got to now choose between an XT M737 or 39. I think I'm going to go for the M737. The bike appears to be going into some sort of mixed match of parts. So we've obviously got Shimano. I'm setting up some Campagnolo Euclid pedals right now. And we've got Sachs at the back as well as Suntour. So that's 4 different companies. It's a shame I haven't got some Mavic stuff to put on here as well. I'm really gutted that I missed out on a Syncross seat post in 26.4 diameter, which is fairly hard to find. And so I've ended up just repainting the, I think it was a Kalloy copy seat post. Until I get a replacement, I'm going to put this stem on. It's too short, but it will suffice. I ended up using a electric screwdriver to widen the diameter inside the grip. Grinding it down eventually has clearly been successful. I'm able to change between gears with the small chainring at the front. However, as soon as I go into the middle or larger chainring, I'm having serious shifter issues. It's then that I realized that I had read the technical manual wrong for the XT-M737 crankset. I actually need a spindle length of 107 and not 113. So the issue here is a chainline issue, and hopefully I'll be able to rectify that changing the bottom bracket. I ended up finding another stem. It's not really the one I really wanted, but in the end, nothing fancy. We've got some kind of tribal sign on the stem, so we know it's the 90s, at least, so somewhat period correct. I also wanted a stem that you could take off the end, what's it called, the kind of cap. Obviously, I've got a security screw as well on here to stop people removing the stem, although I doubt that will ever actually happen. make micro adjustments towards when I ride, makes it easier. I ended up being able to find a bottom bracket with a spindle of 107. It's a BBUN 52. Interestingly, compared to the UN55, the more modern square tapered bottom bracket that Shimano sells, the older UN52, which I acquired, seems to see in better into the bottom bracket, and I think that's because of the flanges on both ends of the newer ones. Finally, we've come to some kind of conclusion. This bike will probably never be finished though. I added on this sticker, I thought the colour went well with the frame. The seat post, obviously I'll be looking out for something better to put on. The bolts as well, I got some anodized red ones to stick on that I had left. The Suntour shifters work well with the Sachs derailleur. Maybe on the middle of the cassette the shifting is not perfect, but that's something I can work on eventually in the future. For some reason I decided to go out in a heat wave to film this. Really not the best of days. Baking hot. As I mentioned, the project never really finishes. I thought a XT shark fin would look quite nice. But this video is finished, so thank you for listening, and until next time, peace out.